Hey everybody, welcome back to the Fantasy Pros Baseball Podcast. I'm your host, Dan Harris. You can find me on Twitter at DanHarris80. It is a great day. It is Mock Draft Monday. We are going to be doing a mock draft using our draft simulator over at Fantasy Pros. Now you guys know what that is at this point. You can breeze through a mock draft with real-life artificial intelligence drafters making the other picks. You can customize your league settings, all of that. That's at fantasypros.com/draftwizard. But you know what? Sometimes you don't just want to do a mock draft by yourself. Sometimes you want to invite some friends in. So that's what we're going to be doing today. We're going to be using our multi-user drafts today. And to join me on this endeavor is Steve Gardner, senior fantasy editor at USA Today. He's on Twitter at Steve A. Gardner. Steve, thanks for coming on. How you doing?
I'm doing great, Dan. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm excited about this. I have not done that much mock drafting. I'm not going to lie. I've been working on my rankings and doing notes and preparing for baseball season, but I haven't done a ton of mock drafts yet. Have you been mocking? Is this like second nature to you at this point in the offseason?
I mean, the process is, but for this particular set of players, I have not done much so far this season. So this will be a good exercise. I'm looking forward to seeing how things turn out.
Well, the good thing is we have another pro with us. I'm sure he's done 80,000 mock drafts at this point because he's always prepared. He's our good friend Joe Pisapia, author of the best-selling Fantasy Black Book series, host of Sports Grid Fantasy Game Day and everything else. Find him on Twitter at Joe Pisapia17. Joe, lovely to talk to you again. How are you?
It's always a pleasure in terms of artificial intelligence. Yes, most of mine is artificial, and I'm part cyborg, so I don't know how that's going to affect this draft, but I did one mock this weekend already, using, of course, the Pro software, and I got an A+, so this should be cake, right? Yeah. I mean, why are we even doing this, I feel like? This is kind of
I know, right? Already, you're the winner, of course. That's the thing. We will get a grade at the end, and there are a couple things. So first, again, you can do all your mock drafts over at fantasypros.com/draftwizard. The multi-user drafts that we're going to be doing, where you can do things with your friends and pull them in and have the remainder of the draft filled out by the artificial intelligence using expert consensus rankings. That's not technically available to the public yet. That's going to be around in roughly 2 weeks. So be on the lookout for that. But this is how it's going to work. We're going to work through it. So a couple things before we get started. First, you can watch this mock draft. You can see all our smiling faces. You can look at the live draft room as we go through it. You can go to youtube.com/fantasypros, or better yet, at our newly launched Fantasy Pros MLB channel. Just search for Fantasy Pros MLB on YouTube. And again, you'll be able to see the mock draft as we go through it. Second, this is, again, the first mock draft of the season. As I was mentioning before, we're going to keep this pretty simple. It's going to be smaller rosters. It's going to be a roto league, but smaller rosters than you're used to in a roto league. 12-team, 1 catcher, first base, second base, shortstop, third base, 3 outfielders, a utility, 7 total pitchers, 2 SP, 2 RP, 3 any pitchers, and 4 bench. So no corner, no middle. We're going to just slowly dip our toes to the proverbial mock draft waters here. And we're going to keep it moving, guys. It's going to be a 1-minute clock. So are you guys ready to go? Steve, are you ready?
Yes, indeed. Let's do it.
Joe, A+ man, are you ready?
Randomize this order.
All right, I'm going to click the little start draft. Yes, I would like to start my draft with 3 participants. If you're watching again on our YouTube channel, that's what it is. So our draft is loading right now. It's going to take a minute. So this is now drafting. So what pick did you guys get? We've got the mock draft is starting in 20 seconds. So it looks like I am pick 7. Joe, you're pick 9. And Steve, you're pick 11. So the mock draft is going to start in a little bit. I'm going to show the draft board right here if you're watching on YouTube. And on the left, I'm going to have our rosters up so you can see. So the mock draft has started, and the first 6 picks as it comes to me are Mookie Betts, Ronald Acuna, Fernando Tatis, Mike Trout, Juan Soto, and Christian Yelich. A little bit of a surprise there. So for me, I get to choose essentially between my 2 picks are either Trey Turner or one of the pitchers. Jacob deGrom is actually the number 1 pitcher on my board, so I'm going to take deGrom to start us off because I like to get out of the first couple of rounds with an ace pitcher. Shane Bieber went next. Joe, you're on the clock. What are you looking at?
All right, well, Trey Turner's still there, but that's just not my speed. I know everybody in Roto always loves him, and I get it. I like a little bit more power, a little bit more pop, so give me my boy Trevor Story. That's where I'm going to go right now. And pitching is tough this year, but I feel good about Story and what he's been doing. So I'm going to go with him. Give me power, give me speed, give me some batting average as well in the format.
Yeah, I can't really argue with that. I do like getting speed early. That's one of the things. Speed and starting pitching is kind of where I like to go, but I can't argue with Story. Is about as safe as it gets. Steve, pick number 11. Garrett Cole was the next pick. Who are you going with?
Well, I'll definitely have to take Trey Turner then. Give me that speed, give me that great start, and for the 11th overall pick, Trey Turner's fantastic in my book.
Yeah, that is a steal at pick 11. I feel like he's usually a consensus top 7, maybe top 8 pick. So now Team 12 went with Francisco Lindor and Freddie Freeman. So you're back on the clock here, Steve. What do you got?
Okay, I like that sort of thinking of shortstop and first base. So Cody Bellinger has eligibility at first and outfield. So the former MVP, I think last year was an aberration. So I love getting Cody Bellinger in the second round.
All right, so starting it off with Turner and Cody Bellinger, you got to be happy with that. Alex Bregman goes next, so it's back to you, Joe.
Well,
pick number 9.
Look,
Go ahead.
Steve's absolutely right. It was a great way to start a team there for sure. Normally in a 5 active outfielder league, I'd be the person who would be definitely taking outfield early, but because there's only 3, I have a little bit more leeway, so I'm going to continue to build like inside out here and go with Jose Ramirez. I understand that Lindor's gone there, but I actually think the Indians are going to continue to be competitive.
Yeah, that's a great pick, obviously. For me, you guys can see I'm looking at a cheat sheet right now, and so that's going to list everything. I imported my own cheat sheet, which is what you can do, which was just my early cut at my rankings and what I want to do here. So the 1 minute clock really gets you here, and mine are getting there. So I'm going to very quickly take Bryce Harper for my pick, get some pop in there, and oh, it looks like, I'm sorry, guys. It looks like I might have auto-drafted here when it got in. So, Joe, it auto-drafted for my next pick.
Well,
that's my bad on that. Look, I'm running the draft. I'm trying to do it. It auto-drafted me as Xander Bogaerts. I'm not going to complain about it. Joe, you're up. I'm sorry about that. Go
No,
ahead.
that's okay. I mean, you're wearing a lot of hats today.
I had too many hats, Joe,
hats.
and I have a large head, which is weird. Go ahead. Start it off. Go ahead.
It's an interesting combination of things.
Number 9. Yeah,
so I am
you're
on
up.
the clock right now looking at what's going on. I wasn't quite prepared. It was so fast, all the auto things. You know what? Give me DJ LeMahieu because second base is just dreadful this year. And I've got my infield set now with Story, Ramirez, and of course LeMahieu. A little bit of flexibility too, plays different positions. I like that.
Yeah, I like it. It's not like the craziest power team early on, Joe, but you've got some batting average. You've got some speed. It's good. All right, Steve, you're up.
All right, that was the guy that I wanted, so thanks a lot, Joe.
You're welcome, Steve. It's always a pleasure hanging out with you.
Indeed. And now the time is running down. I'm going to take Rafael Devers and look for some power. I think, again, didn't have a great year last year, but he's very, very good, and getting him in round 3 is a plus for me.
Solid offensive base to start. That's Trey Turner, Cody Bellinger, and Rafael Devers. You're up again, Steve, because you're pick 11, and it moves fast here with the 1 minute clock. So go ahead and make your next pick.
I've got to take a starting pitcher here, or else things are going to go haywire. The top-rated pitcher, Clayton Kershaw. Fantastic year. I still think he's got plenty left in the tank, so I'm going to go ahead and take Kershaw.
Yeah, it would have been tough, I think, to get out of the first 4 rounds without a starter. Joe, you're kind of looking at the same thing here. Are you going starter?
I am, and I've got to decide if I want to go with Blake Snell switching teams or if I want to go with Lance Lynn. I'll tell you what, man, I'm behind it on the White Sox this year. Give me Lance Lynn. He's quietly been one of the better pitchers in Major League Baseball the last 2 years, and I don't think people have really taken notice. And I love what the White Sox have done this offseason, bringing in Hendricks too. I think they're really poised to be very dominant, I think, in that division.
Yeah, I like Lynn a lot too. I do have Snell slightly higher, I believe 1 spot higher on my board. I am going to take Snell here. I worry a little bit about Lynn's rising, fly ball rates, especially in that park, but you really can't get away from him too much. I am back on the clock. You know what, guys? I think I did a 30-second clock, didn't I? I did a 30-second clock. That's why it's moving so fast. And again, this is just what it is. I told you, I'm wearing too many hats. So this is like lightning speed.
I love it.
Going on
exciting,
here. So
I mean, this is amazing.
It's very exciting. So with 0 time to think, I'm going to now go ahead and draft another starter. I go heavy on starter early. I'm going to go with Sonny Gray. So lightning speed, Joe. We're on to you here with like 4 seconds left to draft. Go ahead.
God, no, that's,
yeah.
Oh my God.
I know. That's what we're doing. Lightning. I'm going to get yelled at by a producer.
I know this is a huge risk, but it's just too much of a value to pass on. So give me Aaron Judge, and hopefully if he stays healthy, that's an enormous power boost for my team.
Yeah, I love Judge there. Luke Voigt went next. All right, Steve, you're on the clock. Go ahead. You've got Clayton Kershaw, Devers, Cody Bellinger, and Trey Turner.
I'm looking, I would like to take Vlad Guerrero Jr. right here, but I think that's maybe a little bit high for him. I think I need to go another starting pitcher again. And Kenta Maeda is the top guy on the board. Thank you for the suggestion, Draft Wizard. I'm going to take him.
All right, you're up again. By the way, this is like playing speed chess. This is exactly what I like. It's really going to hone our drafting skills as we sort of have to make these split-second decisions. So, Steve, you're up again. You've got the two starters. You've got the offensive base. What are you looking at?
Yeah, I'll tell you what. I'm not afraid of taking a DH-only guy, and Nelson Cruz is there. I don't know where he's going to sign. I think it may be with the Twins. I'm going to take him, and I'm going to hit that speed chess buzzer and send it back to Joe.
I love it, Steve. Go ahead, Joe. You have 3 seconds.
I know.
Go.
This is like, you know that movie Searching for Bobby Fischer with the chess?
Yes.
This is like Searching for Bobby Dahlback. That's what this is. All right. I'm going to take Carlos Carrasco here. And it's despite the fact that I am a self-loathing Met fan, I just think Carrasco is one of the more underrated pitchers, once again, kind of like Lance Lynn, where a guy who's going to give you 10K per nine every single season, a player who's, moving to a team that I think is going to be much improved and coming with Lindor too. And again, he's got somebody ahead of him in Jacob deGrom to be the number one starter. So I think that always takes pressure off a guy. So give me Carrasco here.
I think Carrasco's a great pick. Had a great bounce back year last year. He was really fantastic, and I think it should only get better this year. So I took Pete Alonso again, like you, Joe. Don't love taking Mets, even though I have 2 of them right now, so that's a little crazy. But I needed a little pop coming into this right now. So I've got Jacob deGrom, Blake Snell, and Sonny Gray. My pitching staff is in good shape. Then Pete Alonso, Xander Bogaerts, and Bryce Harper, so a pretty good base there. I am going to now, my suggestion is saying take Gleyber Torres. I know he's coming off a terrible year. He missed some time in ours. He is second base and shortstop eligible, so he gives me a little flexibility there, even though I had Xander Bogaerts. So I'm going to go ahead and take Gleyber Torres. Joe, back to you. You've got Cookie Carrasco, Aaron Judge, Lance Lynn, DJ LeMahieu, Jose Ramirez, and Trevor Story.
Yeah, I feel pretty good right now about the offense. And this is not something I would normally do, but he's lasted a fair amount of time. And if you're not first, you're last, in the words of Ricky Bobby, which gives me great pleasure to take Josh Hader first. Give me all the strikeouts, give me the saves. I think he's the only guy that's a real true, you make a case for Hendricks, but like this guy is a real true advantage. So I'll take Hader here and take my chances, and then later on take some closers also.
I do kind of think that this is the type of year where you can go for the guaranteed locked-in closer at this point, at least have one of those guys on your roster. So I like it. Steve, you're up. What are you looking at?
Yeah, I think that was a good pick. That was the one that I was looking at.
I know it's good. If Steve thinks it's good, I know I'm in the right track already. I don't care what the wizard tells me. He's the real wizard. Let me just put that out there for everyone.
I need outfield at this point. If I put Bellinger at first base, so I'm going to go with Michael Conforto and take him.
Yeah, I like it. Conforto is, just a rising star, hopefully. We're all about the Mets, apparently, on this podcast, because that's all we're doing. All the Mets. We love it. Absolutely. So, Steve, you're up again very quickly.
I'm upset that Liam Hendricks did go just the pick before mine. I'm with Joe in that you need a closer. You need a guy that's going to definitely be a closer. And so, with Aroldis Chapman still on the board in round 8, I'm taking him.
Yeah, I was eyeing him, Steve. I was kind of hoping that he would get to me as somebody who could kind of lock down my RP1 spot. So, Joe, what do you got here? You got a good base, my friend. Keep it going.
I like the base, and by the way, I love the last pick there by Mr. Gardner, Conforto. By the way, before I think that's a tremendous value there. This is kind of tricky here. I can go a few different ways. A few first basemen I still like on the board in this lightning round of things. However, as this is going on, and I don't know, I think I just got auto-picked. I can't. This is so fast. It's unbelievable.
This is really, you got Eugenio Suarez. It's completely my fault. You realize what's funny
I would
is
have taken Barrios there. That's why I was trying to pull up. So that's all right. I'll have Suarez. That's a lot of power. I'm fine with that. We'll see if Barrios makes it back to me. Who knows?
I mean, this is really just more fun to do it this way, guys. Let's just do it next time. 5 seconds.
5 seconds.
Between
go.
picks. What's funny is that I had set this up normally, and I had to restart it to do it to make sure something was a little haywire, and I just forgot to reset the clock. All right. Anyway, so I taken Raisel Iglesias again. I'm with you guys. I would have preferred one of the real elite closers at that point, but for me, I missed out on the top guys. I want to make sure I get at least one of them. Iglesias now with the Angels coming off a very good year. He should be a guaranteed starter there. So now I'm looking at, I really need some pop. I just have Alonso, Gleyber Torres, Xander Bogaerts, and Bryce Harper. I don't have enough time to really go searching through everything. So I'm going to take Anthony Rizzo. He's obviously sort of declining a little bit, but he's kind of a rock solid bat. I realize it takes up my utility spot because I have Alonso and there's no corner in this. But with a league this shallow, I'm not that worried about that. Joe, you have 20 seconds. Take your time.
No, it's no time.
Right
Look, I have to take a leap of faith here because the pitchers I was looking at the board are just not there right now. So I'm going to take a leap of faith here with Jesus Luzardo and hope that he becomes that dude. And I know he's a 3, and that's a young guy to be a 3, but you know what? I missed out. The clock was too fast, and so be it. I got to, deal with what I got.
Yeah, and you didn't auto-draft this pick, Joe, so it's a win for you.
That's
Steve,
true.
You're up.
Things.
You've got 17 gorgeous seconds. What do you got?
When in doubt, go for the Met, the best available Met. No,
yep.
I'm a fan of Jeff McNeil, and I need a second baseman. He also eligible in the outfield, so you need batting average. Got to protect that. Jeff McNeil will do it.
I love the pick. That we didn't see the power kind of that we'd seen the year before last year in the short season, but you're going to get average and solid overall production. You're back up. Steve,
yep.
Go ahead. What do you got here?
I wanted Austin Meadows. I really did. But again, that Team 12 is just killing me.
Yep.
Let me have, let's go with, I'm on the clock. I'm going to take Framber Valdez.
Did you get it off? No.
Unfortunately, I think you got auto.
Nope.
You got auto. This is the worst. This is more fun, but it's terrible.
Too slow.
You got Lourdes Gurriel, who I like, by the way, very much at this point. Yeah. All right, Joe, you were all ready, Joe.
I was ready
to
go. I want more power. I didn't like you talking trash about my team didn't have enough power, so now I got Olsen, Judge, and Suarez. So that's going to make up for it. Let's go. I need some speed, clearly, and the pitching is questionable, but I'm pretty happy. At least I'm going to hit some home runs here.
Yeah, you're looking fine. So I also kind of need some power here. I don't have too much time to think about it. I need a third baseman. I'm going to take one of my favorite players, Matt Chapman. Obviously had the hip injury last year, but he was still, in the end, you know what you're going to get. You're going to get plenty of power from him. So now I'm looking at my team. I've got Jacob deGrom, Blake Snell, and Sonny Gray on my rotation. So I could add a starter here because, well, frankly, I could never have too much pitching. But I'm going to, I've got very little time left, and I'm looking at
There's no time to
probably filling an outfield. I know, talking this entire time. I'm going to go with a safe but incredibly boring pick of Michael Brantley, just to kind of solidify the average, especially after taking someone like Matt Chapman, and I've got Pete Alonso. Feel like I could use some average stabilizer. That's what Brantley will give you. Joe, back up to you.
Oh, my goodness. This is really something. You know what? If I'm already in for a penny, I might as well be in for a pound. Let's go Sixto Sanchez. Let's play some upside here. Let's do it.
What do you think of Sixto Sanchez? Like, legitimately, I mean, are you
I
confident?
think I worry about his ability to make all of his starts, like most young pitchers. But as Steve has a little time here to make his picks, I got to tell you, like, I just see the upside, and I see a kid who's got so much out there. And look, I'm going to have to take some more veterans. I got Lynn and Carrasco. I feel good about the innings for those guys. But Luzardo and Sixto is definitely some upside, but there's also some questions, and I'm well aware of that.
Well, Steve immediately made his next pick,
did,
and it was one
he?
of my favorites, Julio Urias. It's a great pick at that spot, even after missing out on Framber Valdez. You got another one up, Steve. Go ahead.
Yes, I'm going Ramon Laureano. Power, speed. I think he's just tapping into his potential, so I love him there.
Yeah, that's a good couple of rounds there. I hope Team 12 didn't again steal whoever you were looking at, Steve, because that's a good couple of picks, and I love Urias that late. I think this is really going to be a huge year. Joe, you're up. You've got like 10 seconds.
I know. You know what? I'm going to just go with the Franimal. I'm just going to get all the power I possibly can. Give me Franmil Reyes in there, too. So Judge, Reyes, Olsen. And I've got some guys with the batting average category already with Ramirez and Story that I think I can help that out, and DJ as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I need to take a very quick look to see eligibility. Looks like he is outfield eligible, I guess, on this. Again,
according to this wizard, it is. And if the wizard says
the wizard takes eligibility from various spots, but now it does look like, unfortunately, he is only first base eligible. So it's a bench spot, and that's Rhys Hoskins, who is one of my favorite bats to get. I think that he's constantly underrated. I think that he bounced back from his kind of, he was having a great season 2 years ago until, unfortunately, he had the wrist injury, and I think he kind of bounced back from last year. I am in a little bit need of some speed here at this point, so I am going to take a guy who didn't steal all that much, will always battle injury, but I have an outfield spot. I'm going to take Byron Buxton here to fill out my outfield, and it is back to you, Joe.
Well, Buxton's who I almost took over Frenmel, but you know what? I'm always worried about those injuries with that guy. It's just always tough to keep him on the field. I was hoping you would make it back to me and finish out the outfield, but instead I'm going to take Mr. Savali over there with the Indians. I really like what I've seen out of that guy. He had one or two bad games, but overall, he was very steady last year and the year before also. I think Aaron Savali, we're barely scratching the surface of how good he could be.
Yep. All right, Steve, your team's looking very solid overall here. You've managed to get by, even though Team 12 was stealing all your picks. So who do you got here in round 13?
I'm looking at maybe taking a catcher here.
No.
I'm going to go ahead and take Wilson Contreras.
Oh, there you go. Now you sniped
You don't
me.
have time to think about it, Steve. There's no even second guessing. Just go ahead. You're up already for your next pick.
It's
so who are you thinking about here?
I
know.
Let me have.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, let me have Joe Musgrove. Great finish to last season. Even though the Pirates are not going to be good, I think he's pretty good.
Yeah, I really like that pick. There's a lot of buzz on him already. Man, Joe, you're already going. Okay, very good. There's a lot of buzz on that. I do like that pick very much.
I'll talk while you pick.
Yes, you go ahead, Joe.
All right, so the reason why I passed on Buxton at the end was because Robles and Buxton were still out there, and I still think Victor Robles has more upside too. The same amount of stolen base potential, in my opinion, too, and I just think if you look at the minor league track record, I think there's a better hitter there we haven't seen yet, and a little bit more lineup protection now with Schwarber, with Bell in that lineup. I think that's going to help collectively, depending on where he ends up hitting in this spot with Washington.
Yeah. All right. So my pick was somebody who I don't like at all, but whatever. We have to do that because we have 30 seconds and we're talking a lot. And that was German Marquez, who, again, you'll get innings, you'll get strikeouts, but obviously the numbers are, who knows what we're going to get. And again, I'm basically in need of pitching here. I still have an RP slot that's open, but, at this point, once you have the one closer, that's really all I care about. Making sure I fill. The other one I'm going to take is a guy who missed all of last season with COVID issues coming in, and that's Eduardo Rodriguez. Again, it's not, once I've filled out, this is one of the reasons why I go heavy on starting pitching early, because I think when you get to this range, it's a lot about upside and everything like that. So not that in love with the pitchers left here. Go ahead, Joe. You are up, my friend.
God, I'm exhausted. I'm going to get a nap when this is over.
That's right. Correct.
This is something.
I pretended like it was a mistake, but I really just wanted to tire you out.
I know. Well, you succeeded.
Advantage.
Look, I'm panicking right now. So by panicking, I'm just going to take Dallas Keuchel because I'm going to take some cheap W's because I just think the offense is that good over there in Chicago and the defense ain't bad either.
Yep. All right. I mean, again, whatever. He's fine. He's fine. That's whatever.
Where we are. Not every pick is sexy, boys and girls.
Everything if you have a pick that's fine right now, we're going to live with it. Steve, you were crushing the draft. Go ahead. Keep it going.
Let's go with Chris Bassett of the Oakland A's. Best available starting pitcher right now, and he's better than you think.
Yeah, I like it. Again, and very underrated. Nobody, fantasy managers hear his name. They're like, Chris Bassett, whatever. But yeah, he's going to give you kind of reliable innings. All right, go ahead. You're up again for your next pick.
Best available Dodger, let's say Tony Gonsolin.
Yeah.
Great season last year as a rookie. Can only get better.
Yep. All right, Joe. I'm sure you've been ready. You've been ready this entire time. Go ahead.
I don't know if I could say that. I think that is
you're ready.
A huge stretch. You know what? Just give me a good arm right now. I'm kind of where Steve is. Give me Seth Lugo, who I think is a very good arm, and I just want to get some quality innings there.
Yeah. I'm going to, it's kind of dumb to do this at this point because realistically in a league like this, we know about closers at this point. You can find closers available, but I am going to take a guy who should be the guaranteed on his team, and that's Rafael Montero, traded to Seattle. Not a great team, but he should, he's the undisputed closer at this point, and finding a guy like that is kind of not all that easy at this point. So now I'm looking for a pick. I could wait to take a catcher, but you know what, guys? This is the Mets podcast for this one. So we've got little James McCann. Truthfully, I'd probably wait on Alejandro Kirk and hope that eventually he gets the at-bats that he's going to need to justify basically being there either at DH or catcher. But whatever. We're going to add James McCann, who, again, has established himself as a top 12 catcher. He's pretty safe. And the Mets like to, they played Wilson Ramos into the ground. They'll probably do the same with McCann. So go ahead, Joe. You're up now here in round 6? 17. Let's
Look
go.
at us go. Man, we are flying here. I'm gonna take Ian Happ, who was a player that I was very much into the last couple years, and I think you started to see a better version of him. Certainly the Cubs are going to have plenty of at-bats available for him, and I like the fact that he qualifies at some other positions. That's going to be very important, obviously.
Yep. I like that pick, too. I was eyeing him for a couple of rounds if I had more time to think about it. You're up, Steve. Go ahead. Round 17.
I need, since we're into the bench section, I want a guy that can play any number of different positions. I'm going to take Nick Solak of Texas, second base, third base, outfield.
Yep. No, I like it. Again, pretty safe. A guy who can play multiple positions are always kind of undervalued in fantasy. People don't think about him. But yeah, when you've got those injuries, somebody who can fill in. You're up again. Miguel Sano and Jorge Alfaro went in between your picks. Who you got here in round 18?
More Mets. Marcus Stroman, available at the 18th round. I think it's pretty good value.
I cannot believe we allowed a Met to last this long.
Yeah,
bad job by us, but way to go. All right, Paul DeYoung went after that. Joe, who are you looking at now?
Well, let's take some risks, right? The Yankees want to spend millions of dollars on Corey Kluber, so why shouldn't I, right?
Oh, yeah. That's a great pick. And again, the fact that they gave him such a big deal, basically, I think was, $11 million guaranteed?
That's a lot of money last time I checked.
It's a lot of money. I mean, not for, ballers like us.
Right.
But yeah, no, I agree. It's going to be good. So look, my staff, the back end of my staff is pretty terrible at this point. So I'm going to just take some upside. I'm going to start with Tristan McKenzie again, who had a good year. He's probably going to be capped with innings and everything like that. So I am back on the clock now. I'm going to take another pitcher, guy who, I don't know, I think he'll probably rise as the offseason goes on, as people kind of look at the underlying numbers here that he had, and that's John Means, again, who added a little, it's not a great division, of course, but he added a little velocity. I like what I see under the hood, so I'm going to add those two guys as upside. Joe, you're up.
Oh, my goodness gracious. I'm just going to try to look for best player on the board right now. You know what? This is not a player that I love because the trends are not good, but I think I'm going to throw a dart here on Andrew Benintendi because he's still so young and see what comes up, because last year was obviously terrible. The year before was trending in the bad direction. We've had a couple years trending in the bad direction, but I think at a certain point you have to say, okay, he's young enough where he could turn things around still and take a shot.
I love Benintendi. I really hope that he does. It's just, man.
No,
he is not giving us signs that he is, right? I mean, that's the unfortunate part.
But he's my fifth outfielder.
Oh, I'm not criticizing
that's the thing. I think at this point you just look at it and go, well, why not, right?
Oh, absolutely. At this point, he's worth a shot. All right, Steve, you're up.
Let's take a guy that I like, even if he's not closing in San Diego, but Drew Pomeranz. Great ratios. I think he's a definite asset and somebody you definitely want to have on your bench.
Steve, I'm sorry to disappoint you. This is your last pick. Round 20. This is it. So I don't know how many Mets are available. J.D. Davis just went right before you, so you're in trouble. Too many. Go ahead, Steve.
Guy that I've always liked, and I think he will have a chance, Sean Manaea is going to be my last pitcher.
All right. I like it. All right, Joe, what do you got here?
This is it, right? I don't have a catcher, so I got to take a catcher, I guess, right?
I mean,
let's take Buster Posey. He's had a whole year off. Let's see what that does to him, right? Let's do it. Buster Posey is a player. He's good, sort of. He plays baseball, I think.
I'm very much in favor of taking the veterans. Okay, so I am up. And again, this is really where, at this point, I'm just going to take some upside for my pitching staff just to get there. I'm going to take Brady Singer again, who had kind of an underrated year. And again, I don't know really how many people are going to be paying attention to what we saw last year. It's really up in the air a little bit. All right, guys. So did projected standings, did your draft grade come up when you finished?
Yes.
On your screen?
Mine did not, which means it's either really good or terrible.
It really? You don't have a draft grade that popped up?
It says blank out of 100 right now. And I've done this before. Usually you get like a little, you get like the letter or the whatever. I get nothing.
Well, we'll go to projected standings in a second. Steve, why don't you tell everybody what your grade was?
All right, my grade was a B-, 82 out of 100.
So we're going to go through your roster because we need to go through it, and I'm going to put up the projected standings, and we're going to look at it. Because I thought your team, as we were going through it, in the 4 seconds that I had to consider it, as we were going through on each time, was very solid overall. So I'm a little bit surprised. I'm also surprised by my grade, which
you're
is
number
an A.
1.
I'm A+, 98 out of 100. So all you need to do is to be narrating a show and narrating everybody's draft and give yourself 6 seconds to think about your pick. So I am going right now. You can see this, guys, after your draft. You can go to projected standings.
Yes.
Okay, so we all did pretty well.
Top 5,
if you
baby.
look at it.
All three.
I'm projected number 1. Joe's number 4. And Steve's number 5. Very, very good. Joe, your hitters are 2nd overall. Steve, your hitters are 6th. Mine are 7th. But it's my pitching staff. And again, I went heavy on pitching early. And by the way, especially in a league this shallow, we didn't really talk about it because A, we had no time. And, B, we just sort of think about drafts. With only 7 starting pitchers, I do think that the top of your staff has just the greater impact, right? Especially when you have more innings and they're going to be good innings, they're probably going to have a little bit more of an impact. So when you have 7 starters, I think or 7 overall pitchers, I think it's even more important to go pitcher heavy with there. My pitchers come out at number 1, Steve, yours is 7th, and Joe's is 10th. So let's look at some team rosters. Joe, since you didn't even get a draft grade, let's just go through your team roster. So I've got it up on the screen, by the way. Again, go to youtube.com/FantasyPros or search for FantasyPros MLB. You'll be able to see all of this. So Joe, go through your roster here. Let's talk through it.
All right. Well, first of all, I think it's interesting because you and I kind of had polar opposite approaches here, and we both ended up in the top 5, right? Your pitching is the best in the league projected, and mine is one of the worst in the league. And for me, I'm willing to make that sacrifice and take chances because where I'm coming from right now is I can rely on my everyday players. Where pitching is right now, it is such a crapshoot. The amount of innings that guys can even go, the amount of injuries, people coming off of a weird season. There's so many variables. Not to mention, I think we're in a weird transition year where a lot of the old guard guys, the Scherzers, the Verlanders, the people that have always been there, I don't feel great about, the old guard at this point. I really don't. And maybe this is the year where some of the young kids kind of take over, like when Steve drafted Urias. I know he's talking about Framber Valdez, who had a great season last year. My roster overall, look, I got to tell you, I'm very happy with the power. I look at this team, and obviously Ramirez is a guy that can hit 30 home runs. Olson's a guy that can hit 30. Story's a guy that can hit 30. Judge, certainly, and Franmil Reyes, Eugenio Suarez, all these guys can hit 30 home runs. I think the batting average will probably be hovering in the 260s, high 260s, hopefully, collectively. But there's going to be a ton of power. And I think I have enough speed to be competitive between Ramirez, Story, and Robles that I think that's actually going to be all right. The pitching, look, I'm going with just dudes, right? Dudes like Lance Lynn, like the workhorse pitching staff. Lance Lynn, Carrasco, those are the kind of guys that I think that they may not be elite, but they're certainly going to give some elite games at times, and that is a good return on investment. I have shots here with Luzardo and Sixto. If one of them hits, I think that's a big game changer potentially. If none of them hit, it's going to hurt me in the standings for sure. Savali, once again, I think another pitcher where we're just scratching the surface of. I love what that organization's done with pitching. Dallas Keuchel and Kluber. Look, Kluber is a complete dart throw. I threw it last year, and it didn't even hit the board. That's how bad of a dart throw it was. But if the Yankees are throwing it, I'm going to listen. I have the best closer in terms of relief pitchers in the game, and Hader. I just took Lugo just as another quality reliever, and I'll play save market on the waiver wire as much as I can. And the bench is Happ and Benintendi, 2 players that I think have some nice overall potential and still have some upside still in them because they're still under 30.
Yep. All right. So I'm going to go through it just position by position so that everybody who's listening can know. Joe, his 2nd overall pick, Buster Posey, of course. No, Joe waited and took Buster Posey late. Insert any old catcher, and we're good with it. Matt Olson at 1st, DJ LeMahieu at 2nd, Trevor Story at short, Jose Ramirez at 3rd. His outfield is Aaron Judge, Franmil Reyes, and Victor Robles. And his utility, who I believe was auto-drafted, was Eugenio Suarez,
I'm at peace with that. It would have been Barrios there, but I'm at peace with Suarez. I got no problem there.
Yeah, I think that offense is legitimate. I mean, especially in a league like this, you have plenty of power. Again, as you mentioned, not only just the pure kind of power bats with Matt Olson and Aaron Judge and Franmil Reyes, but you have sort of the all-around guys. You have guys, you balance out with the batting average with guys like DJ LeMahieu. Trevor Story is going to be power and speed. Jose Ramirez, power and speed. So it's a solid overall offense. Your pitching staff, your 1-2 are Lynn and Carrasco. And really, I think the way you built your pitching staff overall, Joe, because again, the rest of your pitchers, Jesus Luzardo, Sixto Sanchez, Aaron Savali, Dallas Keuchel, fine, and then Corey Kluber. I like in the way you approached it, especially in this draft, which is you get kind of your reliable guys, and then especially in a league this shallow, I think, with the pitching, you go for just tons of upside because all you really need is 1 or 2 of those guys to hit. You can match up, your way around the rest of your pitching staff. If one of Sixto or Luzardo or Kluber really works out, it's going to be an incredibly strong team. So I really do like what you did here, Joe, and I'm not just saying that because I want you to return on the show. I really think it's a strong team. So way to go, Joe.
Thank
well
you,
done,
sir.
especially since you had very
I
little time.
appreciate that, and like I said, I always try to emphasize this to all the Black Book readers too. You can find pitchers on the waiver wire. It's hard to find a guy who can hit 30 bombs. Like that's just tough. It's almost impossible nowadays.
It's funny. This is very funny, actually, Joe. And I want to go to Steve, too, because he also waited a little bit on pitcher. I felt like he took a little bit of a different approach, and we'll get there in a second, where he, probably his top two are maybe a little stronger. They're basically on par, maybe a little stronger than yours. He focused a little bit more on it than you did. For me, oddly enough, I'm kind of generally approaching it with the opposite way, which is you can't find the reliable, I don't know how many there are, maybe 25, maybe 30 kind of reliable arms. And as much as you can match up on a week-to-week basis, on a start-to-start basis, finding the guys that you can throw out there each and every week, those guys are harder for me to find, I feel like, than the random guy who's going to hit the 30 home runs. But you seem to be taking the opposite approach, right?
I'm sorry, that was for Steve, correct?
No, that was for you, Joe. I'm sorry.
I am so sorry. I thought you were transitioning to Steve.
No, it's fine. I'm going to go to Steve in a second, but I wanted to say, because I feel like I'm taking almost the opposite approach that you are, which is, right? So
totally.
You're sort of like, I can find the pitchers to match up. Give me the guaranteed locked-in guys who I know
you
are
were
going
in
to
a different draft spot to make that work, and I think that's the difference in terms of where you were. Like, you were able to get deGrom, right? And then after that, Bieber went. Those are the only two guys for me that are first round grade pitchers.
Over Cole.
Yeah, I still think so. I love Garrett Cole. I'm okay with. I took Cole a lot last year, one overall, first round, because I had the same sort of spot somewhere 6-7. But this year, like I said, I'm just looking at the pitching board, and my concerns are it's very difficult to back that up. It's very difficult to get an advantage. So unless you're willing to get deGrom like you did, and then back it up with Snell and Gray early on. Once again, like, you're just going to end up marginalizing all the good work that number one ace does anyway. So I'd rather build from a situation of depth. I'd rather have a bunch of 1A starters or number twos. I'd rather have 5 deep at number 2 or 3 than I would necessarily have the one guy and then obviously have to wait for the next guy I take, which could be somebody like Patrick Corbett, who could bottom out, or somebody like Steven Strasburg, who could get hurt again. And all of a sudden, where does that leave you? And as you notice in your team too, you've got Bryce Harper, which is a great pick where you were, and then Xander Bogaerts. And then when you take the pitchers back-to-back, what happens is now you're relying on a lot of bounce-back stuff. Like, you need Alonso to bounce back. You need Torres to bounce back. And that very well might be true. I just want to solidify that offense because I think the game has moved in that direction. And I just think there's still a lot of young pitching that has yet to emerge with potential yet that can really change the landscape of the 21 season. And normally that's very risky, but I think in this case this year, with a very small window of guys at the very top, it's a better investment this year than it was in years past.
Okay. I like it. All right, let's go to Steve. Because really, Steve, I'm looking at your roster. I'm going to take issue with this draft grade. Okay,
I agree.
I think this is.
By the way, Steve wins every draft, every league I've ever been in with Steve. Steve wins, so I don't care what it's saying. If he says it's 10th, it doesn't matter. Steve's probably going to win. I'm just telling you all.
Yeah, and as much as I love our draft wizard, and I think it's great. Like I always sort of, especially if I'm in any regular league and I get the draft grade after it, and sometimes it's like it's talking about your reaches or anything on whatever site you play on. I try not to get too worked up over it. If I like my team, I like my team. And Steve, I really like your team. So why don't you go ahead, walk through it for everybody? Because again, I take issue with whatever was a B-. No, it's at worst an A-. Well, so go ahead.
I think it's a balanced team, and that's the kind of team that I end up drafting most all the time. In terms of power, with Cody Bellinger, with Rafael Devers, and I think maybe it doesn't like some of the guys. I mean, Nelson Cruz is one of those, I think at this point, very, you really love him or you want to stay as far away as you can from him. But I don't know. It didn't, I don't think it liked my power very much. But in terms of the entire roster, Wilson Contreras, I think solid catcher, even in a one-catcher league. Bellinger I have at first base, Lourdes Gurriel at second, Trey Turner shortstop, Rafael Devers at third. And then in the outfield, Conforto, Jeff McNeil, Ramon Laureano. I think there's a decent combination of power and speed and ability to score runs, to drive them in. So I was happy with that offense, and I did go offense heavy at first at the top of the draft, just because, as you and Joe were saying, this is one of those instances where we know so little from the 2020 season that we can carry into 2021. Pitchers didn't have full seasons. We don't know how, for instance, a guy that I think has huge upside in Julio Urias, is he going to be able to throw 150, 180 innings this season? He's a guy that's had his innings limited to this point. But, I mean, at this point, he's also a veteran now. And we've seen how dominant he can be. I mean, he's a key part of my rotation. And I was my number 3 starter behind Kershaw and Maeda. I took some upside in Joe Musgrove, Tony Gonsolin. Chris Bassett is very solid, I think. And then Stroman, Pomerantz on the bench. And for closer, Aroldis Chapman. So, I mean, for this team, again, I think it's one of those where I just try and build incrementally, look for the solid values. And, I thought that's where, for the most part, they were. And like you guys were saying, too, once you get past that first level of starting pitchers, it could be anything from boom or bust.
It's the Wild West.
From pitcher 30 on. And that's what's going to make this season really, really interesting, I think.
Yeah. No, and again, that is sort of what informs my philosophy, is that once you get past those top several guys, let's say 30, it is really a crapshoot. And Steve, you brought up the great point, which is, I mean, I believe Lance Lynn led the majors in innings last year with 84. So what do we do with guys, right, who are you just saying, okay, you had a 60-inning season, good, we're going to add 120, 140 innings onto that, regardless of where you are in your career? I don't know if we know the answer to that, especially with young pitchers. So I would like to get it. But Steve, I agree, and maybe it is Nelson Cruz. Again, he doesn't have a team at this point. He's 1,000 years old, but he's utility only. But Nelson Cruz is one of the most historically undervalued players in fantasy, I think, because every year everybody wants to be a year too early rather than a year too late, right? And then that's fine. You'll just take the 300 batting average with the 40 homer pace every single year. So wherever he signs, I think it's a great value. I could see, I guess, maybe the argument that you're a little light on power because of the fact that, you know, other than Cruz, maybe Bellinger, you don't really have that true bopper, right? You know, Michael Conforto is going to provide power. Rafael Devers is going to provide power. Gurriel Jr., and you have a great catcher in Wilson Contreras. But you don't have that, you know, Joe's sitting there with Aaron Judge, right? And Framil Reyes, right? So maybe I could see that. But overall, and Joe, you agree with this, right? This is a solid top to bottom.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's the thing. Steve said that's his approach, and I could tell you with being in leagues and watching Steve draft for the last decade of my life that I can tell you that that's always what he does. He's always very balanced, and he always has a great eye for talent, too. You know, Steve always has those players that are established enough but still have a little bit left in the tank where they can grow and get a little bit better, and that's what makes his teams always so dangerous. I'm gonna have a question for Steve to see if he sees things the same way I do, because when I'm looking at the landscape this year, besides pitching being one of those huge question marks, it's second base. I just think second base is a wasteland this year, and that's why I took a third-round pick with DJ LeMahieu, and I know you said you were looking at him as well.
Yeah.
And that's kind of why I wanted to bring it up, because for me, I was looking at that and saying to myself, look, after him, the drop-off is significant, and I know where LeMahieu's at, and there's a comfort level for me with LeMahieu and the Yankees. How do you view second base this year? Because I am not in love with that position overall.
Yeah, I see it much the same way you do. I mean, Ozzie Albies is my number one, but LeMahieu could be there as well. And then, it seems like there is a definite gap in the tier there. Whit Merrifield was very good last year, continues to be. But beyond that, I mean, Brandon Lau, a lot of questions after what we saw him struggle in the postseason. Ketel Marte, Kevin Biggio, Keston Hiura. I mean, you don't have that solid base of very good second basemen that we've seen, you know, just in the last couple of years. It seems like it's gone downhill rather quickly. And I agree with you 100% there, Joe. You've got to have a strategy for addressing certain things going into drafts. Yeah. Number one, you need a strategy for, you know, getting speed. You need a strategy for getting saves. You need a strategy for how you're going to approach starting pitching. You might need to start developing a strategy before you draft on where you're going to get your second baseman, because there are not that many. And talking about doing mock drafts, the one that I remember doing earlier before this one, second base was the position that I just never felt comfortable drafting in that particular one, and I left it and left it and left it, and I don't know if I ended up with like Nick Madrigal or somebody like that, but that was the one position that was the gaping hole in my draft before. So yeah, I agree. That is something to keep in mind.
And Joe, your pick of DJ LeMahieu in the third round, towards the end, you were the 9th pick overall. Had I not sort of been, had I not auto-drafted Xander Bogaerts, who's a fine player, I have no issues with that. But again, LeMahieu would have been my pick. And Steve, like you, I do have Albies as my number 1 second baseman. He went right before my pick. But had I not, at that point, not realized that we had 30 seconds on the clock and not been auto-drafted, I would have taken LeMahieu there, because I agree with you guys. I do think that this is a year where just the reliable options at second base are few and far between. And it's really, to the extent you're going to take position scarcity into account, especially early in the draft, that's really the position that you need to do it. So I wound up with Gleyber Torres. I'll quickly go through my roster, which is fine. It's not that strong. And again, we were honest with it. Each one of us
Torres
had one auto-drafted
value
pick.
there, though, Dan. I mean, I love him as a player. I don't know what Steve thinks of him, but like I just thought last year was just had there been a full season, maybe there was enough time to marginalize how good he is, because the year before, that guy carried the Yankees offense.
Yeah, I'll throw it to Steve then, because again, that's my 7th round pick with Gleyber Torres. Yeah, and a terrible year last year, and he battled injury. But I think finding the right balance between what we saw last year and what we can sort of put into a career before that is something that's really going to differentiate championship winning teams, finding the right balance. So Steve, I mean, I'll ask you, I guess, round 7, Gleyber Torres, what do you think of that in terms of value?
I think it's a fantastic value. And, he's still young enough that he can improve. And like you were saying, so many players that had, disappointing or subpar years last year, it was 60 games, folks. I mean, that's
right.
Less than half of a season. Under normal circumstances, it's when it's the end of May in a regular season. Are we panicking then on these guys? That's why I think the real value this season in drafts is going to be on those guys who may have struggled a little bit, like a Cody Bellinger falling out of the first round.
Right.
That's huge, and I think those are the kinds of guys that we will sit back at the end of the year and say, what were we thinking discounting these guys, because they have such a lengthy track record and last year was such a small part of it.
I mean, what I really think back to anytime I try to conceptualize what last season meant is what we would have thought of if Jose Ramirez or Yu Darvish, right, had their beginnings of their 2019 seasons last year. We would have been like, oh no. Okay, Yu Darvish would have been completely off the radar, right? Had he not turned his career around and become the best version that he's ever been over the last season and a half. If that's what we saw over the 60-game season, those guys would be 4 rounds, it would just be insane. So really trying to find the right balance between that is going to be key this year. So I'll just quickly run through my team, then we can, finish up here. My catchers, James McCann and Pete Alonso, back-to-back Mets, can't go wrong with that. At first base, Gleyber Torres at second, Xander Bogaerts at short, Matt Chapman at third, Bryce Harper, Michael Brantley, and Byron Buxton in the outfield. Anthony Rizzo as my utility. My starting pitching is Jacob deGrom, Blake Snell, Sonny Gray, Herman Marquez, Tristan McKenzie, Eduardo Rodriguez, Brady Singer, and John Means on the bench. Again, I tried to go upside as much as I could because the back end of my rotation, which again, I really just need one of those guys to hit. I have Raisel Iglesias as my RP, and then I did draft a quote-unquote second closer in Rafael Montero for that, and I have Rhys Hoskins also on my bench. Again, I wasn't sure if he was outfield eligible, and I had 3 seconds to make the decision, but I do love Rhys Hoskins. He's always on my teams because I do think he's a little undervalued. So that's where I ended up. Again, that's an A+ on the Draft Wizard. Yay, and I'm projected to be first. And guys, I'd love to do this at some point again, but I'd love to maybe give us a little more time. Would you guys be okay with that if maybe next time I give us like the actual minute
time.
that we
I want to trim it down another 6 or 7 seconds. I mean, this is I imagine this was like drafting with Charlie Sheen when he was in his heyday for doing drugs. Like this is, I'm exhausted. I don't know about Steve.
I know.
This was like, all right, this took a lot out of me at this hour of the morning. I got to tell you.
here's what we'll do. We'll do this one again at some point. Steve, I'm going to give you and me, we'll get a minute and a half, and Joe will get 8 seconds to make his pitch, but we'll get a minute and a half.
We'll all be in our comfort zones then,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
That's right.
It's like riding a bull, right? That's the target time, 8 seconds. I can do. I can stay. I can make a pick.
That's right. Very right. That's exactly why I said Joe. Okay, so that is going to do it today. Again, fantasypros.com/draftwizard. That's where you can do all the mock drafts. These multi-user drafts, or MUDs as we affectionately call them, they're going to be available in a couple of weeks. Set your timer. Make sure you set your timer correctly before you do it. Steve, Joe, I really appreciate you guys coming on. And again, I really hope we can do it again.
Always a pleasure, my friend.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, we'll be back as always next week with another episode. So I'll talk to you then. Looking for useful content, fantasy relevant information, and the data that can help your team win? Make sure to subscribe to our Fantasy Pros YouTube channel. And while you're at it, don't forget to follow us over on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at FantasyPros so you get all the information you need to dominate your leagues all season long.